speaker is Nivas Venkatramana. Nivas came with a background of a security. So his products, he built great products that could secure our digital devices. With that, without further ado, let me hand over to Nivas, who's going to talk about how to build a great product roadmaps. So with this, let me hand over to Nivas. Nivas, why don't you take over from here?
Thank you, Siddiq. Good evening, everyone. Very nicely articulated, Archana. I think any aspiring product managers can refer to your presentation to get a lot of clues for giving an interview, PM interview.
Thank you, Nivas. Thank you so much.
Yeah, not said, including the tools. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
I'm Nivas Venkataramanan, working as a product manager for McAfee Enterprise. In this session today, I'm going to talk about building awesome product roadmap. So most of you would have heard about this term roadmap. It's a very frequently used one in product management space. In this session, I would be covering these topics. I'll start with what is a roadmap, who are the key stakeholders, what is the benefit of a roadmap, what format is best to present the data in a roadmap, and what's the difference between a backlog versus roadmap. When do you don't have a roadmap? Are you ready to carve out a roadmap? That's a decision point, right? Should I build a roadmap or should I wait? So that decision point you need to take. So that we'll talk about that and how a good roadmap should look like. What are the prerequisites you need to follow to build a robust product roadmap? And finally, how to build it, getting into action. So these are all the topics we would be discussing in this session. Be with me, interrupt me, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. Okay. So let me brief you what a roadmap is all about, right? It is a long-term plan that tells you what is the business you are going to do and who are all the customers that are going to get impacted out of it, and what is the primary problem you are trying to solve, and what is the timeline. All these four different factors are very, very important for a roadmap perspective. We can also consider this as a visual tool which explains your product vision, what that you are going to achieve by kind of planning the functionalities you are going to deliver from the product perspective, and in what timeline when the customer is going to get it. So that you can meet the business goals. So that is just a definition of a product roadmap. Product roadmap does not have any value if your stakeholders are not aligned. That is very, very important because a lot of people are involved in the roadmap discussion, which we will be covering here. The stakeholders, right? So primary stakeholder is customer, because they need to know what is there for them in your product and when it is going to come, because they need to plan their purchasing decisions, their implementation decisions, their deployment strategy. So all these depends on the timeline that you are going to give to the customers, right? And this is also a very good opportunity for you to kind of pitch in as well. Say your customer may be due for renewal during the mid of the year, and you are projecting a roadmap at the beginning of the year that will build curiosity to the customers that whatever they are awaiting for a long time is going to come this year. So you are improving the success, increasing the success rate of renewal. From the sales perspective, it's a big thing for them. So definitely roadmap is a very crucial document from a customer point of view to plan their strategies and their deployments. Next, the customer facing groups, which is internal, sales, marketing, customer support team, right? Sales, they would refer to your product roadmap to strategize their sales strategies, the pre-launch, launch, all sales promotions, everything they can plan. Similarly, marketing department, they can come up with their campaigns, their flyers, brochure, documents. Everything will depend on the functionality that you are going to deliver, and they need to be trained for it. The customer support need to focus on the documentation, the training, and what is the amount of issues that they are going to get resolved in your next version. So all those things are very, very important, and they are the key stakeholders. Next comes the investor boards and sponsors, because they are the one who is funding the project or funding the product, right? They need to know the source of revenue and the amount of investment they need to make for the product, and also whether it is going to meet the timeline. Is it a feasible timeline? How much of force I have to deploy for this product? So all these are dependent on their strategy. So that is very, very important. Finally, the product development team who is implementing the product, right? Their architecture design is going to kind of position your product, and the engineers who are going to kind of implement the design and the user experience, how the users have to interact with their product. So all those depends on the product development team, and they are the key stakeholders. And finally, HR and legal, right? From the resourcing point of view, kind of procuring resources for resources in the sense any hardware requirements and like that, and also legal. You may sell your product in different countries, and probably there may be a lot of import and export laws, regulations involved. So all these are involved. So as much as possible, you account all the key stakeholders from these different areas so that you have a solid roadmap in the end. Let's see what are the benefits of a roadmap, right? So the primary, what do you say, kind of person who is going to get benefit out of it is the business leaders, right? So it's a dual way, right? As a product manager, you are going to own this document, but you would have got the requirements from the business strategies and the goals and objectives of the organization. But this will again be used by the business leaders to communicate it to the various stakeholders across the org and also for the external people. So they will use this document to communicate the business goals to the external people. Next, the product development effort. So the engineering team or the architects, they have to refer to your roadmap to see whether they are aligned to the business goals or not. In case if they are deviating, probably this is the good point that you can, as a product manager, you can tell them that this is the plan we have defined and the direction we are going is not the right way. So this is kind of a document that will guide the development team in the right direction. Finally, all the key stakeholders in the various departments we just discussed, right? So everyone should be aligned so that you get approval from all these key stakeholders to proceed further with the roadmap execution. Let's look at the format. What is the format you need to follow? In the left, you can see a picture, right? Generally, a roadmap is for a defined interval. Generally, any corporate, any organization, they will look for a year, right? At least for a year. Whenever they start the next year, prior to that, they will have an offshore or offsite meeting where they will discuss about what we can plan for the upcoming next year based on the business priorities they will do. So you can bucketize your priorities in each of these quarters. If you have multiple products in your portfolio, probably you can group them according to the plot we have given here. There's no single format as such. You can follow anything which is convenient to you, basically referring to the skeleton, whatever is given over here. Especially for the startup, right? It will be a prioritized list of initiatives because you may not have a defined strategy, product strategy and all, right? Whereas for matured org, it will be a long flight with a detailed strategy broken down into multiple chunks, and you will have different projects within that. So here, the main thing is the format is not important, whereas the sign off from all the stakeholders, that is very, very important. So you need to focus on that than the format. So it is debatable, right? Sometimes people would say, I have a well-defined backlog grouped against different milestones and timelines. So why don't I use that as a roadmap? That itself will talk a lot of, I don't want to waste much time in creating a separate document for that. I would say, in my experience, not recommended. Backlog is different and roadmap is different. Product backlog, it is a big list of things, right? Just like a bag, you take it for a shop. It can hold, you can put whatever you want inside the bag, but what is that you're going to deliver is totally different, right? Based on the priorities. So it may have a user stories, bugs, product maintenance tasks, engineering driven tasks. All these you will be scoping towards a sprint or to a release like that. Whereas a roadmap is a projection for a particular year. So you would kind of scope the milestones, scope the functionalities, associate with the strategic objectives or the business goals you have planned for the particular year and deliver it on time. That is the key thing in the roadmap. So it's a kind of a time-driven document. So we need both. We cannot miss the one. So backlog and roadmap both are required, Most of the time, the backlog will be driven by the roadmap, because when you have a roadmap, you will pick what needs to be delivered by the engineering team. You will pick the user stories, the task, and everything from the backlog and align it to the roadmap. That is how you would do it typically. So then you may ask a question. So you said, when do I don't need a roadmap? There are two instances where you may not need a roadmap. Number one, when you are developing an early stage product, or when you are exploring a blue ocean. In these two cases, you will not have a product strategy. You don't know much about the market, and you will have only the ideas for some unmet customer needs and have a proposal which would try to solve some of these problems based on some assumptions, based on some hypothesis. So in these circumstances, you may not have a roadmap. So roadmap makes sense only if the product is mature enough and it is stable. Now comes the question, how do you know your product is mature? Two things can determine your product is mature or not. Number one, whether it meets the product market fit. Number two, whether you are able to define a product strategy for your product based on the customer knowledge and based on the market analysis you have done. Let's look at the number one in deeper. How do you say you have achieved a product market fit? Simple. You have a set of customers who will be much disappointed if your product doesn't exist. Then there you are. You have attained the product market fit. How do you say you can go ahead with defining a strategy? You have set of hypotheses with some assumptions, and you have also validated with some set of customers. If you have validated and you have proved the hypothesis, then you have a valid business case. You have solved a customer problem. If these two are done, then your product is mature. Then you can proceed to the next step in building a roadmap. So no roadmap for early stage products or prototype. It will be just hypothesis and validation is what I want to register in your mind. What is the characteristics of a good roadmap? You see two pictures in the right? So this is how generally we will prepare the roadmap. Like you will in the x-axis you will plot the time, whereas in y-axis you will plot the products or multiple product portfolios like that. Or it can be a simple table, just the bottom one, right? Just Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, group all the milestones under that. The primary element for a good roadmap is you should have a well-defined product strategy. That is very, very important, which are associated to the business goals. And it should be more realistic, no jargons, no tentative timelines, nothing. There should be a clear start and a clear finish line. That's it. I'm going to start it now. I'm going to finish it now. There may be some adjustments here and there based on the priorities that you have to do it in the roadmap meetings that I will cover later. But it should be more realistic. And also it should be fully approved by all the stakeholders. Get a sign off from each representative from the key stakeholder list, which I have already provided, right? So that is very, very important. Don't miss even a single person there. Okay, so now you are ready with all the basics of the roadmap. You have to take care of a few things before actually carving out the roadmap. There are three important elements that you need to focus on. Number one, customer knowledge. That is the very foremost and very, very important thing. How do you get more details about the customer? Initiate a customer research group. Have some people deployed to find more details about the customers, or you can create a short survey to already known customers so that you get to know more about the product problems, how they are feeling about the product, what is that missing in the product they want to have, and how they want it differently. All those kind of set of questions you can plan and roll it as a survey so that you will get a lot of insights about that. And you can don't hesitate to call the customers. Just call them if you have their number and just see what is that they are experiencing about the problem and what is their pain point. Understand that and participate in case if you are not directly involved with the customers in your current role based on some situation. Probably you can voluntarily participate in customer or sales meeting where you will get a lot of information about the customers. Sales meeting is very, very important where they will highlight all the details about the customer pain points and how they kind of get around the people, displace the competitor product, how they were able to kind of get the product deployed in the customer environment. So that will give you a lot of insights about the product and the customer. And watch the customer while using your product. That is very, very important. Only then you can come up with a very better user experience that we call as ethnography, right? Just watch your customer use the product. Number two, market knowledge. You need to understand the market where you are pitching in. That is very, very important. Without that, it's absolute waste of time. So do a thorough analysis of the market. Probably the personal framework will help you, where you can, based on the various factors like political, environmental, science and technology, and then environment, legal, all these factors plays a different role in your product and getting your product to be more successful, right? So just visit the market where people are kind of exploring the product, or you may have some alternatives or substitutes, right? So just see what is that difference that other product is making, so that you can bring in more value, and also run some product road shows or trade shows, participate in trade shows, so that you get to meet more people, more customers, and also get the pulse of the market. Finally, gaining confidence from the product team. That is very, very, very important. You should be a product mentor. The most important thing is you have to develop a trust amongst the product development group. So you should be available to clarify the queries, help them prioritizing the milestones, and give them a complete roadmap for at least for 6 months, if not 1 year, right? They should be always engaged. Don't make them to come to you and ask, what are we going to work next? What is the next thing in our roadmap? Such questions should never arise. You should upfront give what is the plan for the next 1 year or 6 months at least. That is the level of volume of thing that you have to think about from the PM perspective, so that you can gain confidence and trust among your team. That is very, very important. Finally, so now all the groundwork is done. Now we are going to get into action, crafting the document of the roadmap, right? So now you have the milestones, functionalities you want to kind of deliver to your customers, and what time or what time frame, right? So plan that and sequence it and put it and bucketize it based on the quarters or based on the timelines you have. Then start conducting roadmap meetings. This is a very crucial thing, where you will kind of monitor and closely follow up with different set of things. So first, define a product strategy and the goal that you are trying to achieve as part of the roadmap plan, and then show them the capacity you have accounted for this particular roadmap. What is the resource strength you need? What is the workforce you need? Probably a good strawman approach will work out better, right? So you are challenging them. You are giving a draft of things, so that you want to get more details from the people, right? So that they will ask you some questions. So what? You are going to do this. So what? Who is going to get benefited? I'm going to do this. So what? So something like that will come, right? So you will try to answer more and more. Actually, you will get more deep insights from the other people. So that's how you should build the roadmap. So come up with a draft, get more insights from the people, and then capture that in the meeting itself. Don't hesitate to update the roadmap in your meeting itself. So that gives the level of flexibility you have, and also the trade-offs that you are okay with, right? So there should be some trade-off you should be okay with, so that you kind of manage the priorities well, and also ensure this is the success for the whole team and for the whole business. You have to register that in their mind. We are working towards meeting a common business objectives and goals. That is the main theme here, so that everyone comes to an alignment. So once this is done, you need to evangelize the roadmap to other level of stakeholders who are not part of the core meetings. Could be your customers. You may not have all the customers on the core meeting, so you can just communicate these roadmap plan to the key customers, not to everyone, right? So to the partners at least, so that you can present them the top level objectives and what is the competitive advantage they are going to get benefit out of this new plan, so that they can think about their renewals and they can think about their deployment plans and everything. Sometimes in the wider forum, right, people may hesitate to give you an open feedback, or probably they may feel something different and they may hesitate to tell you. So better schedule a one-on-one with the key business leaders, so that you can talk to them openly and get the things which they hesitated to kind of tell you or disclose you in the open meeting. So that way you are not missing out even a small granularity in the roadmap plan. So if you have done and taken care of all these things, I congratulate you. As a product manager, you are done with the roadmap plan. You can roll out the plan now. So you have a robust plan now, which you can deploy it, execute it. At the same time, don't think you are done, right? You should always have a room for improvements. May it be a new customer need or a desire from the customer, or you have identified some critical information out of the competitive landscape, which you think if you can include that, probably it is going to add more value and difference to the product, and you may get more sales. And also there may be something from the development time, they would have faced some challenge because of that, they may not be able to meet the deadline. In that case, you have to negotiate and try to pitch in some other new top priority so that you can get it replaced with the new one and also add more value. So that way you have some room for improvements so that your roadmap becomes more robust. So I wish you all good luck to have a very efficient and a robust roadmap in the coming days. And I thank Product Syndicate for giving me an opportunity to talk about the roadmap. And I expect more sessions to follow soon. Please let me know if you have any questions. I am done with that presentation. Thank you.
Very, very insightful, Nivas. Really awesome to hear how to build the great roadmaps. Not only that, you are able to distinguish between what is roadmap and what is a backlog. I think very clear distinction. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, right? Your practices that you have done in the past of how you worked with the stakeholders. Really, I'm sure the audience who are participating, spending their Friday evening might have been greatly beneficial with your talk. Thank you so much, Nivas.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nivas.